of Bombay has been immeasurable. His characters have been studies in the dignity, depravity, and grace of human beings. His portrayals, although primarily in supporting roles, have been heralded for their detail and gravitas and the significant contribution they've made to each production. His chronicling of theatre through articles, criticisms, and interviews have done a vital service to theatre by archiving the greats of his time. Over the last 6 decades, he's been in over 30 plays and has even directed 7. He's fondly remembered by his performances as Groucho in The Man Who Came to Dinner and Charlie in Death of a Salesman, and also, of course, the gravedigger from Hamlet. But much of Farrokh Mehta's work goes unrecorded. He has been committed as a team player with an unbeatable sense of humor. The quintessential prankster, both on stage and off, he has consistently brought joy to the rehearsal room, never failing to exude calm in the most stressful situations. Even under pressure, he has remained meticulous, disciplined, and focused. A generous and giving actor, he has always believed that theatre must be built on friendship, and therefore has earned the love and of all those who he has ever interacted with. For a substantial and impressive body of work in theatre, a journey that began while still in college, and for his indomitable youthful spirit, Thespo 21 is proud to present the Lifetime Achievement Award for 2019 to Farrokh Mehta. Upon to present this award. And what's interesting that it all began for Farrokh with a tale of legendary friendship. A friend and colleague whose production of Not According to Plan, Farrokh, while still in college, accidentally walked into. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Farrokh Mehta's dearly loved friend and colleague, Jersin Dacuna, to present the Lifetime Achievement Award.
He can walk very well, but this is his way of upstaging me.
I'm very used to walk on paths. Farrokh, it gives me the greatest pleasure to present this Lifetime Achievement Award to you. They mentioned lots of plays that you've been in, but the one that I remember very clearly has not got the mention it deserves. It's called The Little Hut, if you remember. And I remember it for 2 reasons. One was that Susan was played by the delicious Margaret Bragg.
Now I remember.
And I remember it for a riddle that made the rounds of the cast. It went like this. Why did Margaret Bragg answer? Because Farrokh Mehta. Now where's that thing? This is an actor taking a bow at curtain call, which Farrokh has done 727 times. citation. Is somebody going to read the citation?
It's already been read.
Read it.
Now can I sit down?
Now you can address the other leader. For sure. It's not my show. It's my show. Not yours. No.
That's it.
No,
Justin, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jerson. Thank you, Mr. Mehta. And now, to have a chat with the Mr.
I want to know when he makes it the exit. Bye.
Watch the steps, Justin.
All right.
And the show up.
And now to have a chat with Mr. Mehta, I'd like to invite Nitya Mathur, an actor who's been with Thespo since she was 17 years of age. Can we have Nitya on stage?
Before we begin, sir, there's a... Yes.
Now,
Yes. Before we begin, there's a small note that I have to read out, sir. Mr. Ravi Khote, your son, who he wasn't in the video and he's unable to be with us today because he's in Ladakh, has sent a small note.
it'll take all evening if it's not.
We've edited it. We took that in mind. It's extremely edited. It should not take more than a minute.
Okay.
Unless I fumble a lot. He says, "Thank you so very much, Thespo, for recognizing my father's contribution to society through theatre. There will be many who applaud his thespianism today. However, I would like to share my thoughts on an attribute of his which I find far greater. Every great human being is primarily discovered in their acts of kindness. Having been privy to his caring and helpful nature has been truly humbling. His ability to be unconditionally understanding has been a deeply empowering gift to us all. His belief that all of his children may be born equal but might have different paths to follow has been greatly liberating for me. His emphasis on us following our values as guiding lights, even at the cost of material loss, has been instrumental in the pursuit of our growth. Without his love, care, and compassion, it would have been impossible for me to seek out my own happiness. So whilst you felicitate him with the Lifetime Achievement Award in Theatre, I would like to commend the love and understanding that we as a family received from him. This is the most precious of all his achievements." And on that note, if we could rewind a little bit, Aditi spoke about how you started off in college. And I know a lot of us today here are either still in college or have just gotten out of college. So if we could talk a little bit about what your time at St. Xavier's was like and how you actually got introduced to theatre.
Okay. In school, I was never in any play, not even allowed to hold a spear in the wings. But just before I went to college, 6 months before, my cousin took me to the annual event of the dramatic club there. And I thought it was okay, so this is theatre? Okay. Till I saw one play and one actor. Play was fantastic. It was a one-act play, not according to plan. One actor, none other than Jerson. He bowled me over completely and sold the idea of theatre to me. And why? Because in that play, believe me, he was tied down to a wheelchair, plus he was tied down to talking to somebody on a telephone, not a mobile, a telephone with a wire. So he was really tied down stage-wise, and he talked to somebody at the other end. To me, that was one of the great lessons, how to say what you want to, but also to listen to what is being said and not said. So Justin, thank you for that. Now, not many of you may know, but in the 50s and even early 60s, the St. Xavier's College Dramatic Club was perhaps the most active gathering of theatre lovers. And people often ask me, she also asked me, what made it special? We met every Monday. College would end at 1:15. 1:30, the hall was filled with us, plus two people to whom I owe a tremendous debt, Adi Marazwan and Derek Jeffries. Adi Marazwan, at that time, was the editor and owner and publisher of a newspaper, a daily. Derek Jeffries was general manager traffic at BAST. With their heavy workload, these two men came every Monday. Every Monday. I may miss a Monday, but they never did. Every Monday they'd come to help us and to foster love for theatre. So how did they do this? They never got up and said, okay, Farrokh, you move from here, you do this play, act this way. No. Every Monday, after a little bit of chat, they'd say, next Monday, which of you guys is going to do a play, a one actor? And very cautiously, some would put up a hand and say, okay, you do a play, whatever it is. And they left it to that person to choose the play, to choose the cast, to decide who's to direct it, and stage it 7 days later. This freedom that they gave was terrific. And the next week when we presented, there was no highfalutin criticism from them. They asked all the other members, what did you think of the play? What would you like to have changed? What would you particularly liked? So there was a lot of feedback, And rather than criticism, they only pushed us in a certain direction, saying maybe that could have been done this way. So I think the Dramatic Club at St. Xavier's College was a fantastic gathering of kindred souls. And that feeling of being kindred is what made us love theatre.
And so it was a lot. So a lot of those who took part in the St. Xavier's Dramatics Club would then go and be a part of a theatre group called Theatre Group. And like you just said, it was about the kindred, and it was about the kindred people and the friendships. And you once even said that friendship outlives everything else.
That's true.
So what is the practical impact that has in a theatre making process? Is there a certain effect that it has when you're in a rehearsal room?
That's a tough question. First of all, let me just take on from what you said. The Dramatic Club of St. Xavier's College was really the breeding ground for most of the actors of theatre group. We all grew from dramatic club into the theatre group.
Right.
And I know lots of organizations, theatre organizations, where people meet and they're friends. But the theatre group at that time was quite distinct. Let me explain why. Okay, we do a play, but by the time the last curtain call was there, the question was already being asked, what's the next play we're going to do? That is how we felt. We didn't want to stop theatre at all. Second, we had at the theatre group an event called The Hunt. Now don't ask me to explain what The Hunt meant. None of us ever knew what it meant, but it was called The Hunt. And it was every Saturday evening at about 7:30 or 8, where we'd meet either at Kulsum Terrace or at Derek's place or Hamid's place, somewhere. And we'd all meet, and it was supposed to be called a pound party. Everybody had to bring a pound of something, like greasy samosas, stale wafers, and maybe some soft drinks. But why I'm talking about The Hunt is that there was life beyond theatre for us in theatre group. You know, it meant a lot to be together, just to come together. We could talk about any and everything, maybe the next play, but it was just getting together. And that bonding is what lasted and lasted and lasted. Because if all of you theatre lovers, all of you youngsters, can really find that bonding, treasure it, because there's nothing better than the bonding that theatre gives.
And so for years you worked with these friends, and I know that at that point there were plays that would have fairly shorter runs as compared to maybe what you'd have today, maybe 2 weekends, something like that. But then there were plays like Death of a Salesman that went on for decades. How is that different? How is it different from doing a shorter run as opposed to an extremely long run?
First of all, let me make it clear, the short runs were not of our choosing. That's all that we had in those days. The plays that we did ran anything from 2 to 4, maybe 5 shows. And that was the audience that we had. I think the first breakthrough, Jason, am I right, was The Little Hut, which ran for, oh there you are, which ran for I think about 21 shows. And everybody said, unbelievable. Today, everybody's doing 15, 20, 30 shows. And life is like that. So.
But I think what I'm trying to understand is, how does a play change when you have a longer run?
Oh, I don't.
Does it even?
Well, actually, a play shouldn't change. Play shouldn't change. Each actor may be wanting to refine what he's been doing, in some way or the other, improve it, refine it. But a play doesn't change. I mean, let's be honest, there's a playwright, there's a director, there's an actor, and there's an audience. All 4 can have a slightly different approach. Playwright, after he's put it in writing, it's generally hands-off. Generally hands-off. Even with a person like Girish Karnad. When Alec did Tughlaq, he started with a totally different opening. More people remember that damned opening with Kabir, half naked, than they remember the play. So Girish never interfered. But what I'm saying is, after this is there in writing, it's up to the director to take it and give his interpretation. After he's given that total interpretation, good directors should be able to find good actors to say, now you give a creative interpretation to the character you have. And if the two can get along, that's fine. If they can't, then the director has to mold it in some way. But the actor also has an interpretation. And then how is it received? Every audience is different. There's nothing like one audience. So theatre changes from day to day sometimes. You know, it does. But when you're talking of a long run, the real long run that I can think of is Death of a Salesman. There were 4 productions of that. 4 productions over 4 decades. And there were 2 actors who were constant in all 4. That was Alec and me, playing the same roles. And the first 3 productions, it never dawned on us. Maybe as we grew older and introspected more or whatever it is, we talked about it. We played our characters differently. And then in retrospect I realized that as we grew older, as our own being grew, as we grew as individuals, our interpretation of the same characters changed slightly. But when in the 4th production, when we played it, I think we played it as lifelong friends, which is what they were. But in the first 3 productions, that lifelong friendship, I don't think existed that strongly. So a long run gives an opportunity to actors to evolve.
Yes. And so you spoke about approaches, how a director has an approach and an actor has an approach. And in the video we all saw everyone talking about the honesty that you bring to each character. And as an actor, I'm very curious to know if you have an approach, if you have a certain technique you follow or don't follow at all.
Oh God.
We need the secret.
This was a question that I told her not to ask because there's no simple answer to that. Does an actor have his own technique, or maybe it's his own approach? There's nothing like technique.
How is it that one can bring honesty on stage?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that an actor should not perform. An actor should not imitate. That's the obvious thing. Let me try and answer this in a slightly devious manner.
Okay.
Alec often used to say, Matthew, when the hell are you going to drop that script at rehearsals? Let's say, it'll come. And I'd really, genuinely be the last to drop the script. Sometimes, just a couple of days before technical rehearsal. And Alec would always say, why can't you learn lines? And I had no answer at that time, but now, in retrospect, I realize if I learnt lines, then I learnt lines in a particular way. I learned lines, not just the words, but the way to say it. And if I did that very early in the rehearsals, I had already cast myself in a mold that the character is like this. I wanted to, through rehearsals, find out the real character.
Right.
And then the character would know what to say and how to say the lines. You know, the lines can't come first, they must come last. It's the search for, and the other thing I do believe is that in character, not me, the character. If you can see the character that you're supposed to be playing, and that character is very clear in your mind, regardless of what the face looks like, then you've got your characterization. It's the character that dominates, not you, it's the actor.
Right.
I don't know how else to explain this word honesty.
No, but I think I understand what you're saying. I think you explained it beautifully. I think there's something we need to talk about because it's important, which is your play, A Touch of Brightness, which was supposed to be taken to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, but then it didn't go. Would you like to tell us why, and then we can get into it a little bit of detail?
Considering that this was the one play that was never staged, this is the one damn question I'm always asked. What about Touch of Brightness? But I'll tell you why it was important to us. A Touch of Brightness was written by one of our members in the theatre group, Pratap Sharma. It was set in the red light district of Bombay. Alec decided to direct it, and it was invited to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in its very early years. We're talking about the early 60s, when the festival had just started at Edinburgh. And we were thrilled with it. We worked very hard, very hard. And literally the day we were to fly out, and I was having my morning cup of tea, and I opened the newspaper, and then I read a small column which said, "Brightness dimmed," or something like that. I don't think newspaper people wrote such good headlines. Something like that. And I read it, and our passports were supposed to be impounded. The play had been called off, and none of us knew why. So I went to the office, and all my colleagues said, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be flying tonight." And then I checked, and we found out that the play had not just been stopped from going, it was actually censored. Censored meaning not this line is out or that line is out. No play. This cannot be done at a festival in the UK. What will people carry away as an idea of India? Red light district? We didn't get a chance to tell the politicians that if they wanted, we could show them the red light district. It existed. But for me, that was the first real censorship experience. And censorship is a terrible thing. I'm totally against it. And I hope that all you youngsters will, at every opportunity you get, fight against censorship. If we can, as theatre people, as artists, create something which is honest, then nobody should be able to censor it. Let the audience censor it. Let society censor it. But no organization like a censor board should ever censor a play. And I take my hat off to Amol Palekar, who I think in the last 2 years took the matter up at the High Court level and won the case that censorship has to be very carefully employed by the authorities. Censorship is really a negative force.
Yes. Before we open up,
I forgot to tell you.
Yes.
The other reason why A Touch of Brightness is very well known is that I complained to Alec, saying, you know, we've got our theatre group actors, actresses, etc. Why the hell have you got this Marathi actress with us? I mean, what's she doing here? And Alec said, just shut up, she's very good. Anyway, we tolerated everything. And when the play didn't go, and we continued to meet, and this is the teamwork, the friendship, the bonding, every evening, a friendship grew with this Marathi actress, and I ended up by marrying her. Two very good reasons to remember why the play is important.
And before we open up, if I was to ask you what you hope for the future of theatre and where do you think we should go from here, what would you say?
The future of theatre is to be left to playwrights, directors and actors. I mean, it has to move. You can't say, this is the future, you know. It will evolve the way it wants to. No one can say, it's going to be like this. Let me expand on this point. I know we're running out of time, but let me. Sometimes I'm asked, you know, theatre group hasn't really done a play now for a long time. Maybe in the last 15 years, whatever plays have been done, were done because Ryle and Ace Productions were willing to sponsor and produce the whole thing. So, is the theatre group dead? You know, I believe organizations, like human beings, grow up, certain stages of life, and then they finally disappear. Not just theatre group, many. My wife's Rangayan was much talked about, but it died. Time comes when they don't exist. Why is it? Because the moving forces are no longer there. You know? But is the theatre group over? No. It has evolved. If it's not doing plays, it's doing two very important things. One, the Babi Padamsee, Sultan Padamsee Playwriting Award, which the theatre group had forgotten all about, was revived, I think, about 3 years back? About 3 years back. And full marks to Puzi Sayadi. She almost single-handedly promoted the whole idea, and we thought, okay, we'll get, how many plays do we expect? Oh, 20, 25. We ended up in year one with about 65 plays from all over the world, written by Indians. And we thought that was terrific. The second round crossed the 100 mark. Am I right, Puzi? 100 and? Good luck to the judges. And now she's on to the third round, and we don't know where it will end. So just imagine, the theatre group is actually fostering, encouraging the writing of plays. And that's really the starting point, because if plays don't get written, theatre doesn't exist. The second big thing that the theatre group is doing is with Thespo and Kwasal and Koral have been running it for 21 years. Kwasal, you're only 15 years old, damn it. Why do I think Thespo is important? A number of reasons. One, it has a cut-off date, as you all know. 25 years, you're 26, you can't enter. It's terrific. So his whole focus is encourage theatre at the young age. What age? The sort of age when we were, for example, at St. Xavier's College Dramatic Club. If you can foster love and craving for theatre at that age, it will last. Maybe not a lifetime, but it will last pretty long. So that's the first important thing. Second, he has taken it beyond Mumbai or Bombay or whatever you want to call it. This year, I think something like 150 entries are there from about 50 cities. 15, how many?
Do we have a number? 18
cities.
18 cities.
18 cities. 18 cities across India and about 10 to 15 languages. Last year, Kwasa told me there was a language no one had heard of. Now, what does it mean? What is Thespo doing? It's taking theatre out of the restrictions of one city and taking it across the country to the young people. And if they can foster love there, theatre will grow. They are encouraging playwriting, they are encouraging actors. Third reason why it's very good. I told Kwasar, I said, you send your judges all over the country spending so much money to sit and say, yes, you're selected or not. He said, no, that's not it. Why don't you just ask them to send you video recordings? And he said, Farrokh, that's not enough. Our people go there, look at all the plays and give detailed discussions and feedback. And the feedback, he says, is as important as the decision whether they're selected or not. So you remember? I think Thespo's doing a terrific job, like the Sultan Padma Shri Award. Theatre is there, theatre group is there, it has evolved into doing this. Great. Short question, long answer.
And on that note, we will be opening it up for questions from the audience, if we have any. Think again. This time's not going to come back. Okay, then that's lucky for me because I have more questions. I have one last question. You have touched upon this a little bit, but I want to end with this. Is that back then the norm was you would have a day job and then you would rehearse in the evening in Kulsum Terrace, like you said. One last time, what is it that brought you all back despite having day jobs? Today when people ask me, I say I'm a full-time actor. So what is it that motivated you all to keep making theatre?
Well, what kept us doing theatre was our love and vanity to be on stage. But, generation lifestyles change. When we were younger and we were working, regardless of the pressures and demands of work, normally offices ended at 5:30, 6:30, so we were free. Today the youngsters have got so many demands on their time. They're doing part-time jobs, they're doing some work in television, they're doing something here, they're doing that. So we had more free time, put it that way. And therefore we said, our time is our time. Second reason, I think, is that we were very fortunate that we had, how should we say, managing directors or whatever you want to call them, who said, wow, what's your next play? Is it coming on? And they actually looked forward to our theatre. Quite often today, I believe, people will say, I've got to go for a rehearsal. No, you can't go, you've got to finish this. So, we were encouraged even in our working life, do theatre. It's good.
And on that note, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for conversing with me.
I have
Yes.
a few questions.
Yes.
You didn't ask me, I'm going to ask you. Are you ready? can those who are Parsis here just raise your hand? Okay. And Christians? Not bad. But any Muslims? Few. Hindus? You? Okay. Any Jains? Okay. One last question. How many of you are Indians? Will you please remember that? That applause is not for me. That applause is for my friend Alec. At one of his big lectures, he asked the same question. And times were not that bad when he asked, to make the point that we should all remember that we are Indians above all else. And, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Thank you, Nitya.